Long before the North had borders or kingdoms, before the land was measured and named, peoples lived close to the weather. They watched the sky because it mattered. They learned the seasons because they had to. And at night, when the work of the day was finished, they told stories. These stories were not written down at first. They were spoken, remembered, repeated. They explained why the world felt uncertain, why winter returned, why time moved forward without asking. The Norse did not imagine a perfect world. They imagined a world that endured. Their stories were shaped by cold nights, long journeys, and the understanding that not everything could be controlled. Tonight, you will hear some of those stories. They are not told to excite or to warn. They are told as they once were, as reflections of how the world was understood. You do not need to follow every detail. You do not need to stay alert. These stories were meant to accompany the night. And we begin, as the Norse believed everything began, with nothing at all. Before there was land to walk on, before there was sky to look up to, before there were directions, distances, or names, there was only space. The Norse called this space Ginnungagap. It was not darkness like night, and it was not light like day. It was the absence of both, a vast openness without shape, sound, or boundary. Nothing existed there that could be measured. There was no wind, no movement, no sense of before or after. Time, as it would later be understood, had not yet begun. To the far north of this emptiness lay Niflheim, a realm of cold, mist, and deep silence. Rivers flowed there, but they were frozen, their waters locked beneath thick layers of ice. Mist drifted slowly above them, settling and lifting again without urgency. In Niflheim, cold was not cruel or violent. It was patient. It endured. Ice gathered quietly, layer upon layer, without resistance or intention. Nothing in Niflheim rushed to become something else. To the far south lay Muspelheim, a realm shaped by heat and glowing fire. Flames moved there, but not in chaos. They rose, faded, and returned, following rhythms older than memory. Light shimmered, then softened, never resting, never spreading beyond its place. For a long time, these realms remained apart. Cold stayed cold, heat stayed heat. Between them, Ginnungagap remained open and untouched. Slowly, without decision or purpose, ice from Niflheim began to drift outward. At the same time, warmth from Muspelheim reached northward. When they met within the emptiness, the ice began to melt. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Drops formed. Movement appeared where there had been none. Something began to change. From this meeting of cold and warmth, life emerged. From melting ice and gentle heat came Ymir, the first living being. He was not shaped by intention, and he did not arrive with meaning already assigned to him. He existed simply because conditions allowed him to exist. Ymir slept, and as he slept, other beings came into existence from him. Life followed life, without plan, without direction, as water follows the shape of the land it has not yet seen. The Norse believed creation was not an act of command, it was an unfolding. The world did not begin because someone decided it should. It began because balance was reached. Even after the world began to take form, Ginnungagap did not disappear. It remained between realms, between moments, between what was known and what was still uncertain. The empty space was never gone. It simply became part of everything that followed. It wove itself into the roots of Yggdrasil, becoming the space between its branches. It lingered in the quiet before the first breath, in the stillness between heartbeats. It became the unseen canvas upon which all stars were painted, the fathomless depth behind every mountain's shadow. Ginnungagap is the first memory of the cosmos, a memory of potential. It endures not as an emptiness, but as a promise. In every moment of creation, in every birth of a star or a story, that primeval openness whispers, it is the necessary nothing that makes something possible. The void did not vanish, it transformed into possibility itself, the eternal cradle for all that is and all that is yet to be. At the center of the Norse world stood a tree. It was not planted, and it did not grow by chance. It simply existed, holding everything together. The Norse called this tree Yggdrasil. Its trunk rose through the middle of the worlds, and its branches stretched outward in every direction. Some branches reached high into the sky, while others extended beyond sight. Its roots grew deep, far beneath the surface of the worlds it supported. Yggdrasil connected 9 realms, each different in nature and purpose. There was Asgard, the realm of the gods, and Midgard, the world of humans. There were lands of giants, of light beings, and of the dead. All were held in place by the same tree. 3 great roots anchored Yggdrasil. One reached into Asgard, where a sacred well lay beneath it. Another stretched into the lands of giants, drawing strength from deep ancient earth. The third descended into Niflheim, touching the cold realm of mist and shadow. At these roots were wells that mattered greatly. One held memory and knowledge, another held fate. From these wells the tree was nourished. The Norns, beings who shaped destiny, came regularly to tend Yggdrasil. They did not speak loudly, and they did not argue. They worked quietly, pouring water from the wells onto the roots, ensuring the tree did not decay. Creatures lived upon Yggdrasil. A great eagle watched from its highest branches. A serpent gnawed at its roots. Squirrels ran messages along its trunk, carrying words between sky and ground. These movements were constant, even when the worlds themselves felt still. Yggdrasil was not perfect. It suffered. Its bark cracked, its leaves fell, and its roots were slowly worn down. Yet it did not fall. The Norse believed the universe endured, not because it was strong, but because it was maintained. Balance was not automatic. It required attention. As long as Yggdrasil stood, the worlds remained connected. Life continued, and time moved forward, branch by branch, root by root. It was a living axis, turning seasons in the realms above and drawing dreams from the wells below. Its sep was the flow of time itself, and its rings held the memory of every age. When winds stirred in Midgard, they began as a whisper in its leaves. When stars were placed in the sky, they were hung from its twigs. The tree did not merely hold the worlds apart, it allowed them to speak. Through its veins, the wisdom of the roots reached the courage of the branches. Through its stillness, The fury of the eagle was answered by the patience of the serpent. And so the worlds turned, not around it, but within it, each life a ring in its wood, each story a leaf born and released, all connected, all sustained by the enduring, suffering, sacred tree. Before humans had names, before footsteps marked the earth, the world already existed, but it was quiet. The seas moved, the winds passed through forests, and the sun followed its path, yet no one witnessed these rhythms. The gods walked the young world. Odin, Honir, and Lodur traveled together along the shoreline of Midgard. They saw two shapes resting near the water. They were trees, one ash, one elm. Driftwood shaped by time and tide, but empty of purpose. The gods paused, not out of need, but out of recognition. Odin stepped forward. From him came breath, the force of life, the unseen wind that moves within all living things. He breathed into the forms, and they stirred. Hoenir followed. He gave them mind, the ability to think, to choose, to shape intention. Awareness settled into the wood, like light entering a room. Then Lodur came last. He gave warmth and color, speech and emotion, the senses that bind thought to feeling. Skin formed, blood moved, and voices waited to be used. Thus, the first humans awakened. The ash was named Ask, the elm was named Embla. They did not rise as gods, they were fragile. They knew hunger, cold, and uncertainty. Yet they carried gifts greater than strength. They carried breath that could sing, minds that could remember, hearts that could feel joy and grief. The gods gave them Midgard to dwell in, not a realm of perfection, but of balance, between fire and ice, between order and chaos. Ask and Embla learned the world slowly. They learned the seasons, the patience of soil, the warning in dark clouds. They learned that life was shaped by effort and sustained by memory. The gods did not remain. They watched from afar. Humans were meant to walk their own path. Yet the gifts remained. Every breath echoes Odin's wind, every thought carries Honir's spark, every feeling warms with Lodr's fire. The Norse believed humans were not accidents, they were shaped from the world itself, wood and water, breath and awareness. And even now, when waves carry driftwood to shore, the memory of Ask and Embla rests within it, a reminder that life begins quietly, with attention and the gentle gift of breath. Before Odin was king of the gods, before he sat upon a high throne, before ravens carried his thoughts across the worlds, he was a wanderer. He walked not for conquest, but for understanding. The Norse called him All-Father, but he did not remain above all things. He chose instead to move among them. Odin traveled the 9 worlds, wrapped in a dark cloak, his wide-brimmed hat pulled low, his spear Gungnir resting lightly in his hand. Those who met him rarely knew his name. They saw only an old man with one eye and a voice that carried quiet weight. Odin gave up his eye willingly at the well of Mimir, beneath the roots of Yggdrasil. He traded sight for wisdom. The waters there held memory of the past, of what was forming, and of what might come. From that moment, Odin saw not as others did. One eye looked outward, toward the visible world. The other looked inward, toward meaning and consequence. He wandered Midgard, the realm of humans, sitting beside hearth fires, speaking in riddles, testing the wisdom of kings and farmers alike. He rewarded hospitality and remembered those who denied it. Above him flew Hugin and Munin, thought and memory. Each dawn they left his shoulders, circling the worlds, listening, observing, remembering. Each night they returned, whispering what they had seen. Odin feared one thing above all, not death, but ignorance. To learn the deepest secrets of the cosmos, he hung himself upon Yggdrasil, the world tree. For 9 nights, wounded by his own spear, he neither ate nor drank. He hovered between life and death, between knowing and unknowing. In that silence, the runes revealed themselves, not as gifts, but as truths earned through endurance. With them came knowledge of fate, magic, and the hidden structures of reality. Yet even with this wisdom, Odin continued to walk. He knew that knowledge stagnates when held too tightly. The world changes, and wisdom must move with it. He knew also of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. He knew his fate was sealed. Still he did not turn away. He prepared, gathered heroes, and sharpened resolve. Odin the Wanderer is not a god of comfort. He is a god of seeking, of sacrifice, of walking forward even when the end is known. In every traveler who searches for meaning, in every quiet question asked beneath the stars, his footsteps still echo, not as a ruler above the world, but as a presence within it, wandering, watching, and never ceasing to learn. Before Odin was known for his throne, before warriors filled Valhalla, there were two shadows at his shoulders. They were ravens, black as night, quiet as thought. Their names were Hugin and Munin, thought and memory. Each morning, as the light touched Asgard, Odin stood at the edge of the high halls. Without words, the ravens understood. They took flight. Hugin flew first, swift and restless. He followed the movements of the living world, the choices made in haste, the plans whispered in secret, the turning of intentions not yet fulfilled. Munin followed more slowly. He circled ruins and quiet places. He watched what had been left behind, broken oaths, forgotten songs, the weight of actions already taken. Together they crossed Midgard. They perched on rooftops and battlefields, on the branches of Yggdrasil, on the edges of dreams. They listened. They remembered. Odin did not see the world as others did. He depended on his ravens. Through them, he sensed the pulse of fate moving quietly beneath events. Yet Odin feared their journeys. In the old poems, he speaks of this fear, that Hugin might not return, and that Munin might be lost forever. For without thought, action becomes blind, and without memory, wisdom dissolves into silence. At dusk, the ravens returned. They settled upon Odin's shoulders, their wings folding like closing pages. They spoke not in words, but in impressions, a tension here, a regret there, a future bending slightly off its path. Odin listened. He weighed what he heard. Not all knowledge demanded action. Some truths needed only to be held. Hugin brought urgency. Munin brought depth. Between them, Odin shaped his understanding of the worlds. It is said that ravens still circle battlefields and linger near places of decision. The Norse believed this was not coincidence. Thought and memory never stop watching. When you pause before a choice, when the past quietly informs the present, the wings of Hugin and Munin are stirring, not as omens of fear, but as reminders that wisdom is born from what we think and what we remember. And somewhere, upon a high seat in Asgard, Odin still waits for their return. Before waves were feared or worshipped, before sailors named the winds, Njord already knew the sea. He was born among the Vanir, gods of fertility, land, and flowing wealth. Unlike the thunderous gods of Asgard, Njord ruled what moved quietly: tides, currents, and the steady breath of the open water. When peace was made between the Aesir and the Vanir, Njord was sent to Asgard as a hostage of trust. He did not arrive with armies or demands. He arrived by ship. The vessel was long and narrow, its hull sealed with pitch, its sail woven from thick wool. Oars entered the water without splashing. The sea accepted them. Njord stood at the prow. He wore no armor, only a heavy cloak, salt stiffened at the edges. His hands rested on the rail, feeling the vibration of the waves through the wood. The voyage passed along known coasts, rocky shores, low beaches scattered with kelp, harbors where fishing boats were pulled ashore. Njord watched carefully. Where his ship passed, winds softened, currents aligned, the sail filled without strain. This was not command, it was recognition. Seabirds followed the mast, gulls, auks, dark shapes skimming the surface. Fish moved beneath the keel in dense silver bands. The sea was awake and attentive. Njord was a god of wealth, but not of hoarded gold. His wealth was return, ships that came back intact, nets drawn heavy from the water, trade routes that remained open season after season. As night fell, the sea darkened but did not grow hostile. Stars reflected clearly on the surface, broken only by the ship's wake. Njord read the sky without effort. He knew the signs of approaching storms, and he allowed none to rise. The waves remained low, measured, predictable. At dawn, mist lifted from the water in long, pale sheets. The coastline of Asgard's realm appeared, cliffs rising steadily, stone brightened by early light. The ship entered calmer water. Oars slowed. The hull glided forward on its own momentum. When Njord stepped ashore, the scent of salt remained with him. From that day forward, the harbors of the gods were safe. Ships departed when they should. They returned when expected. Njord later took Skadi as his wife, a goddess of mountains and snow. Their marriage revealed a truth the Norse understood well. Njord could not leave the sea. Skadi could not leave the high peaks. They tried to live between both worlds. 9 nights by the shore, 9 nights in the mountains. But Njord missed the sound of waves against wood. Skadi missed the silence of snow. They parted without hatred. The sea remained his home. To sailors, Njord is not the storm. He is what keeps the storm distant. He is the steady wind from the right direction, the tide that lifts rather than drags. When a ship moves smoothly through dark water, when the horizon stays clear, when the voyage ends quietly, Njord has already passed that way. Not loudly, not visibly, but with the patience of the sea itself. Before poetry belonged to gods or humans, before songs carried memory across generations, there existed a knowledge too powerful to be freely given. The Norse called it the mead of poetry. Its origin lay in conflict. When the Aesir and the Vanir ended their war, they sealed peace by spitting into a single vessel. From this mingling of breath and intent, a being was formed, Kvasir. Kvasir was the wisest of all. He traveled the worlds, answering every question, speaking with clarity and calm. But wisdom, the Norse believed, often invites envy. 2 dwarves, Fjalar and Galar, killed Kvasir in secret. They mixed his blood with honey, creating a mead that granted poetry, eloquence, and deep understanding to any who drank it. This mead passed hands through betrayal and death until it came to the giant Sutung. He hid it within a mountain called Hnitbjörg, placing his daughter Gunnlod as its guardian. Odin learned of the mead. As with all knowledge, he believed it should not remain buried. Disguised as a laborer named Bölverk, Odin entered the world of giants. He worked tirelessly, earning trust through effort rather than command. When the time was right, he bargained his way closer to the mountain. Using a drill called rati, Odin bored a narrow passage through stone. He transformed himself into a serpent, slipping silently into the hidden chamber. There he met Gunnlod. She was alone, watching over the mead in endless stillness. Odin did not take it by force. He stayed with her for 3 nights. In exchange for companionship, she granted him 3 drinks. With each drink, Odin consumed an entire vessel. The mead was gone. He transformed again, this time into an eagle, and flew toward Asgard. Suttung pursued him, also in eagle form, rage beating through his wings. Just before capture, Odin reached the god's realm. He released the mead into sacred containers, but not all of it was caught. Some fell to Midgard below. This, the Norse said, is why not all poetry is wise. Some verses are clumsy, some empty, some foolish. The true mead was kept for gods and worthy poets. Thus, poetry was not born gently. It was stolen, risked, earned through cunning and sacrifice. And every time words shape meaning from silence, the echo of Odin's flight still moves through them. Fenrir was born of knowledge the gods wished they did not possess. He was the son of Loki and the giantess Angerboda in Jotunheim, a land of stone valleys, frozen rivers, and towering cliffs. Alongside Fenrir were born 2 siblings, Jormungandr, the world serpent, and Hel, ruler of the dead. When Odin learned of these children, he consulted prophecy. The answer was clear. Each child would play a role in Ragnarok. The gods acted immediately. Jormungandr was cast into the ocean surrounding Midgard. Hel was sent to rule over the dead. Fenrir, however, was brought to Asgard. The gods believed they could control him. At first, Fenrir was only a wolf cub, large but manageable. He was raised among the gods, fed daily, and watched constantly. Only one god dared approach him without fear, Tyr. Tyr fed Fenrir with his own hands. He spoke to him. He did not lie. But Fenrir grew at an unnatural rate. His shoulders rose higher than a man. His jaws widened enough to crush armor. His strength became impossible to ignore. Fear replaced patience. The gods decided Fenrir must be restrained before he could fulfill his fate. They forged a massive iron chain called Laithingur. They challenged Fenrir to test his strength against it, calling it a game. Fenrir accepted. He braced himself, pulled once, and the chain snapped apart. The gods forged another, called Dromi, thicker and stronger than the first. Fenrir broke that one as well. Now the gods understood. No ordinary binding would hold him. They turned to the dwarves of Svartalfheim. The dwarves created Gleipnir. It was thin, smooth, and light as silk. But it was made from 6 impossible things. The sound of a cat's footstep, a woman's beard, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spit of a bird. Fenrir immediately sensed deception. He agreed to be bound only if one god placed a hand in his mouth as a pledge of honesty. No god volunteered, except Tyr. When Fenrir strained against Gleipnir, it tightened. It did not break. Knowing he had been betrayed, Fenrir bit down. Tyr's hand was severed at the wrist. Fenrir was bound on the island of Lyngvi, anchored deep into the earth. A sword was wedged between his jaws to prevent him from biting. Saliva poured from his mouth, forming the river Van. There he remains. Fenrir does not thrash or howl without purpose. He waits. At Ragnarok, Gleipnir will break. Fenrir will run free. His jaws will stretch from earth to sky. He will devour Odin himself. This is not anger, it is fulfillment. To the Norse, Fenrir was not evil, he was consequence. A future delayed, not prevented. And until that day comes, the wolf waits, bound by fear, fed by prophecy, and certain of what is to come. Ragnarok did not begin with battle. It began with change. The Norse said there would be signs, and those signs came slowly over many winters. First came the Fimble winter. 3 long winters followed one another, without summer between them. Snow-covered fields that once grew grain, rivers froze deep enough to walk across. Food became scarce. In Midgard, humans turned against one another. Brothers fought brothers. Oaths were broken. Law lost its authority. At the same time, the natural order weakened. The sun was swallowed by the wolf's skull. The moon was taken by Hati. Stars vanished from the sky. The earth trembled. Mountains cracked. Trees fell. Fenrir broke free from his bonds. Gleipnir snapped apart. The wolf ran, his jaws stretched wide, fire burning from his eyes. At sea, the world shook again. Jormungandr rose from the deep. The world's serpent released the ocean from its shape. Waves crashed inland, coasts disappeared. The ship Naglfar broke free. It was built from the nails of the dead. Now complete, it sailed across flooded waters, carrying giants toward battle. From Muspelheim, Surtr advanced. He carried a flaming sword, brighter than the sun. Fire followed his steps. Bigrost, the rainbow bridge, collapsed beneath the weight of the advancing forces. In Asgard, the gods prepared. Heimdall sounded the Gjallarhorn. Its call reached every world. Odin rode to the battlefield. He wore his helmet and carried Gungnir. He knew the outcome. Still he rode. Thor stood ready. He gripped Mjolnir. Lightning moved around him. Freyr faced Surtr, though he no longer had his sword. Tyr approached Garm, the Hound of Hell. Loki arrived as well, leading the enemies of the gods. The battle began on the plain of Vigridr. Odin met Fenrir. The wolf swallowed him whole. Thor struck Jörmungandr, killing the serpent. Then he took 9 steps and fell, poisoned by its venom. Freyr fought Surtur and was slain. Tyr and Garm killed one another. Heimdall and Loki met. They fought, and both fell. When the battle ended, Surtur set the world aflame. Fire consumed Asgard, Midgard, and all the realms. The old world burned. Then the fire faded. The earth sank into the sea, and for a time there was silence. But Ragnarok was not only an ending. From the waters, the earth rose again, green and fertile. The sun returned, reborn through her daughter. Some gods survived. Vidar and Vali remained. Thor's sons, Magni and Modi, inherited Mjolnir. Balder returned from Hel, bringing peace. 2 humans survived as well, Lif and Lifthrasir. They hid within the world tree, fed by morning dew. From them, humanity began again. The Norse did not see Ragnarok as despair. They saw it as a cycle, a world that ends so another may begin. Not loudly, not suddenly, but as all things do, through change, loss, and renewal. And even now, in the quiet turning of seasons, the memory of Ragnarok remains, not as fear, but as understanding, that nothing lasts forever, and that beginnings often wait inside endings.